The massive space station Nexus Prime floated between two bright stars, its silver hull reflecting the twin lights across the galaxy. Inside the Grand Council chamber, representatives from 12 different alien species sat around a circular table that could have held a small city. The room buzzed with strange languages, clicking sounds, and telepathic whispers. Ambassador Jinsu Park straightened his simple black suit as he looked around the table. For 3 days, he and his small human team had tried to negotiate peace in the Outer Rim conflict. For 3 days, the other species had treated humans like annoying children who did not understand how the galaxy really worked. "The human proposal is ridiculous," declared Counselor Thexvar, his tall gray form shimmering as his telepathic thoughts leaked into the air around him. The Altarians' large black eyes showed nothing but contempt. "They want us to share resources with species that cannot even defend themselves. They speak of cooperation, when they should speak of conquest." Admiral Zenthoke's insect-like head clicked in agreement. The Krillian's forearms gestured sharply as he spoke. "Humans are weak. They feel too much. In war, feeling gets you killed. The strong take what they need. The weak serve or die. This is the way of the universe." Chancellor Vexani floated above her chair, her energy form crackling with blue light. "The human species has only been in space for 200 years, she said, her voice like wind through crystal. "We ethereals have traveled between stars for 10,000 years. Perhaps humans should listen more and speak less." Park remained calm, his hands folded on the table. Around him, his team of advisors shifted uncomfortably. Dr. Sarah Kim, his chief diplomat, looked ready to argue back. Captain Lee Min-ho, their military representative, had his jaw clenched tight. But Park raised one hand slightly, and they stayed quiet. "With respect," Park said in his gentle voice, "our proposal offers a way to end this conflict without destroying entire worlds. The Outer Rim systems could become neutral trading zones. All species would benefit from shared technology and resources. War costs everyone far more than peace." The laughter that followed was not kind. Thexvar's mental voice cut through the room like a blade. "Humans think the universe runs on feelings and friendship. They do not understand that power is the only truth." "Your colonies are small and poorly defended," Zenthoke added, his mandibles clicking. "When this conference ends, the Council will take what it needs from human space. You have good farming worlds and useful minerals. We will put them to better use." Tensev. "The human concept of empathy is a genetic flaw," said Dr. Kelveth, the synthoid representative. His mechanical voice was flat and cold. "It prevents proper decision-making. Emotions cloud judgment. Logic demands that resources go to species that can use them efficiently." Park looked around the table slowly. He had spent months preparing for these talks. Human analysts had studied every species, every culture, every possible approach to peace. They had brought detailed plans for economic cooperation, cultural exchange programs, and joint defense agreements. They had offered to share human medical technology that could save millions of lives. The aliens had spent 3 days laughing at every suggestion. "Perhaps," said Park quietly, "we have different ideas about what strength means. Humans are philosophers, not warriors," sneered General Corinth of the hegemony. "Philosophy does not win battles. When the strong come for your worlds, your pretty words will not save you. Your species is too young to understand galactic politics," added Ambassador Zeth from the Trade Federation. "Leave such matters to older, wiser civilizations. Focus on what humans do best: farming and manual labor." Park stood up slowly. The room grew quiet as all eyes turned to him. His team looked worried, but Park's face remained calm and peaceful. 3 days ago, humanity came here in good faith, he said. We offered our hand in friendship. We brought plans for peace that would benefit everyone. We shared our best ideas for ending this war without more death. He picked up the datapad containing the human proposals and placed it gently in the center of the table. In return, you have mocked our ideals. You have called our compassion weakness. You have threatened our worlds and our people. You have made it clear that you see humans as nothing more than resources to be divided among yourselves. The aliens looked pleased with themselves. Several nodded approvingly. Park looked around the table one more time. Very well. Humanity withdraws from these negotiations. We will no longer participate in this council or its decisions. Consider our departure effective immediately. Dr. Kim started to speak, but Park shook his head. The human delegation began gathering their materials. You cannot simply leave, protested Chancellor Vexani. The council has not dismissed you. The council does not command humanity, Park replied calmly. We came here as equals seeking peace. Since you refuse to treat us as equals, we choose to leave. Good, laughed Thexvar. One less voice of weakness at this table. Now we can divide human space properly among worthy species. Park paused at the doorway. When he turned back, his voice was still gentle, but something in his eyes made several aliens shift uncomfortably. You have mistaken our patience for weakness, he said quietly. You have confused our desire for peace with inability to defend ourselves. You believe that because humans choose cooperation over conquest, we are helpless children. He smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. History will remember this choice you have made. When the consequences come, remember that humanity offered you friendship first. The human delegation left the chamber in silence. Behind them, the aliens were already beginning to argue about how to split up human territory. None of them noticed the small recording devices that Dr. Kim had quietly placed around the room. None of them thought to wonder why the humans seemed so calm about leaving. After all, how dangerous could a species of farmers and philosophers really be? In the corridor outside, Captain Lee Min-ho spoke quietly into his communicator. Admiral Cheng, this is Captain Lee. Operation withdrawal is confirmed. Repeat, Operation withdrawal is confirmed. Park nodded approvingly. The galaxy was about to learn that there were many different kinds of strength, and sometimes, the greatest warriors were those who fought for peace. The council chamber erupted in celebration the moment the human delegation disappeared. Holographic displays lit up around the circular table as the alien representatives began marking human territories on galactic maps. Finally, declared Admiral Zentho K, his 4 arms moving rapidly over the display controls. Now we can conduct real business without listening to human sentiment. Counselor Thexvar's telepathic presence filled the room with satisfied thoughts. The Altarian Empire claims the agricultural worlds in the Kepler sector. Our psychic abilities make us natural rulers of farming populations. The hegemony will take the mining colonies, announced General Corinth. Humans have located several rich asteroid belts that will serve our industrial needs. Chancellor Vexani's energy form pulsed brighter. The ethereal collective requires the research stations. Human science may be primitive, but their data could prove useful. Dr. Kelvith's mechanical voice cut through the noise. Synthoid calculations indicate human resistance will be minimal. Their military forces are scattered across too many systems to provide effective defense. The aliens spent hours dividing human space like a meal. They drew borders through star systems, assigned ownership of colonies, and planned occupation schedules. Not once did anyone suggest that humans might have prepared for this possibility. Meanwhile, across human space, a different kind of preparation was underway. General Sarah Kim stood in the command center of the hidden military base built inside the asteroid New Sol. Around her, dozens of screens showed human colonies throughout the galaxy. To alien observers, these colonies looked busy with evacuation efforts. Transport ships moved constantly between worlds, apparently carrying refugees and supplies to safety. Status report, Kim ordered. Phase 1 is proceeding perfectly, replied Colonel Park Ji-hoon. All civilian populations have been moved to secure locations. Our decoy operations are convincing alien scouts that we're abandoning our territories. On the screens, human colonies appeared to be emptying rapidly. Families loaded onto transport ships with their belongings. Factories shut down their production lines. Military bases seemed to be dismantling their equipment. But appearances could be deceiving. "The transport ships?" asked Kim. "Carrying engineers, not refugees," smiled Colonel Park. "Every ship that appears to be fleeing is actually deploying our defensive network. The Vanguard project is ahead of schedule." For 20 years, human engineers had been secretly building something the galaxy had never seen before. While other species focused on bigger weapons and larger fleets, humans had developed a different approach to warfare. They called it the Vanguard Network. Dr. Maya Patel worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the research vessel Hidden Truth. Around her, teams of scientists made final adjustments to devices that looked like simple cargo containers. "How many more can we deploy before they arrive?" asked Captain James Wright, the ship's commander. 47 more systems need coverage, Doctor," Patel replied, not looking up from her work. "Each container holds enough gravitational manipulation technology to trap an entire fleet. Once activated, nothing gets out without our permission." The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. For 2 decades, human supply ships had been visiting every system in human space. To alien observers, these ships carried food, medicine, and trade goods. In reality, they had been placing sophisticated defensive technology throughout human territory. Hidden stations hung in the empty space between planets, invisible to most sensors. Automated platforms waited in asteroid belts and behind moons. Gravitational generators lurked in the depths of gas giants. All of it connected by quantum communication networks that could not be jammed or intercepted. "Sir," called Lieutenant Kim So-young from her communication station, "we're receiving reports from our observation posts. The first alien fleets are moving toward human space." Captain Wright nodded. "How many ships?" "The Krillian Third Fleet is heading for the mining colonies, approximately 200 vessels. The Altarian mine fleets are approaching the agricultural systems with similar numbers. The hegemony has dispatched their conquest armada toward our research stations. And they think we're defenseless," Wright said quietly. The aliens had made their first mistake by underestimating human intelligence gathering. For months, human agents had been monitoring council communications and military movements. Every alien species thought their plans were secret, but humans had been watching and listening to everything. "Captain," said Dr. Patel, looking up from her work with a tired smile. "The last deployment is complete. The Vanguard network is fully operational across all human systems." Wright activated his communicator. "All stations, this is command. Network status confirmed green. Repeat. All systems, green." Across human space, thousands of hidden devices came online. Gravitational generators tested their fields. Automated defense platforms loaded their weapons. Communication networks synchronized their targeting data. The aliens approaching human territory saw only empty space and abandoned colonies. They had no idea that they were flying into the most sophisticated trap in galactic history. In the Kepler system, the Altarian mine fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the farming world of New Busan. Admiral Thekmore's flagship detected no military vessels in the area. Long-range scans showed the planet's cities were nearly empty. As expected, the Admiral told his crew telepathically, "Humans have abandoned this world rather than fight for it. Deploy occupation forces immediately." The Altarian ships moved confidently toward the planet. They passed several asteroid belts without scanning them carefully. After all, what could hiding in empty space? In the asteroid belt, automated systems detected the approaching alien fleet. Gravitational manipulation devices that had waited 20 years for this moment began charging their systems, targeting computers locked onto enemy vessels. Communication networks sent activation signals throughout the system. Admiral Thekmore never saw the trap closing around his fleet. Similar scenes played out across a dozen star systems. Alien commanders, confident of easy victory, flew their ships directly into carefully prepared ambushes. They had studied human military capabilities and found them wanting. They had observed human evacuation efforts and seen only cowardice. They had forgotten that humans were very good at making others see what humans wanted them to see. Back on Nexus Prime, the council members continued their celebration. They received regular reports from their advancing fleets, all confirming that human resistance was non-existent. Plans were made for victory parades and occupation ceremonies. None of them wondered why human space had gone completely silent. None of them questioned why their fleets had stopped sending regular updates after entering human systems. They would learn the truth soon enough. Admiral Thekmor felt the first tremor of concern when his navigation systems began showing impossible readings. The Altarian Mind Fleet had been approaching the farming planet of New Busan for 3 hours. But somehow they seemed to be getting further away instead of closer. Helm control. He projected telepathically to his bridge crew. Explain our current position. The helmsman's mental response carried confusion and fear. Sir, our instruments indicate we are moving toward the planet at standard approach speed. However, gravitational readings suggest we are being pulled in the opposite direction. Impossible, Thekmor replied. No natural phenomenon could create such an effect. That was when the first human ship appeared. The vessel seemed to materialize from empty space, as if it had been hiding behind nothing at all. It was smaller than any Altarian warship, built with clean lines and simple design. To Altarian eyes, it looked almost primitive. Unknown vessel, Admiral Thekmor, broadcasted on standard communication frequencies. You are in Altarian territorial space. Surrender immediately, or be destroyed. The response came in perfect Altarian telepathic language, projected with such clarity that it reached every mind in the fleet simultaneously. This is Captain Lee Chang-ho of the Human Defense Force. You are trapped within a gravitational manipulation field. Your weapons will not function properly, and your ships cannot escape. I advise immediate surrender. The Altarian admiral's laughter echoed through the mental network connecting his fleet. One small human ship threatens the entire Third Mind Fleet? Your species truly has lost contact with reality. Fire all weapons, he ordered. The Altarian fleet opened fire with energy weapons that could normally crack planets in half. Brilliant beams of telepathically guided plasma streaked toward the human vessel. Every shot curved away at the last moment, bending around the human ship as if deflected by invisible barriers. Impossible, whispered the Altarian weapon systems officer. Our targeting computers show direct hits, but the enemy ship is undamaged. Captain Lee's voice filled their minds again, still calm and patient. Your weapons are designed to function in normal space-time. The gravitational fields surrounding my ship bend space itself. Your energy beams are following curved space-time paths that lead away from my vessel. Admiral Thekmor felt something he had never experienced before. Genuine fear. What do you want? Human? Unconditional surrender of your fleet, Lee replied. Your ships will be escorted to designated holding areas, where your crews will be treated with dignity and respect. You will remain there until this conflict is resolved. Never. Thekmor projected furiously. The Altarian Empire does not surrender to primitive species. Very well, said Captain Lee sadly. Computer, implement Containment Protocol 7. Space around the Altarian fleet suddenly twisted. The ships found themselves pulled together by irresistible gravitational forces. Unable to break free or maneuver, their weapons would not fire, their engines could not generate thrust. 200 of the galaxy's most advanced warships had become helpless metal sculptures floating in manipulated space-time. Similar scenes played out across human space. In the Titan mining system, the Krillian Conquest Armada discovered that the abandoned asteroid mining stations were actually sophisticated weapon platforms. Admiral Zentho K's flagship found itself surrounded by asteroids that suddenly sprouted weapons, turrets, and shield generators. "How is this possible?" clicked Zentho K furiously. "Our intelligence reports showed these stations were empty." Commander Sarah Kim's voice came from everywhere at once, broadcast through speakers hidden throughout the asteroid field. "Your intelligence was correct, Admiral. The stations were empty of civilian miners. They have been full of automated defense systems for 20 years. The Krillian tried to fight their way out, but human technology proved far beyond anything the Council had imagined. Energy shields deflected their most powerful weapons. Automated targeting systems tracked their ships with impossible accuracy. Most disturbing of all, the human weapons seemed designed to disable rather than destroy. "Why do you not kill us?" demanded Admiral Zentho K, as his ship's systems failed one by one. "Because," replied Commander Kim, "humans do not enjoy killing. We prefer to win our battles without unnecessary death." In the research systems near Earth, the Hegemony Devastation Fleet found something even more shocking. The human colonies they had come to occupy were not only defended, they were counterattacking. Ships that had seemed like simple civilian transports revealed themselves as advanced military vessels. Cargo containers opened to release swarms of fighter craft that moved with impossible speed and precision. Planets that appeared defenseless suddenly launched orbital defense platforms that had been hiding beneath the surface. General Corinth watched in amazement as his certain victory turned into total defeat within hours. "Status of all fleets," he demanded from his command staff. "Sir," his aide replied with obvious fear, "we have lost contact with over 90% of our vessels. The few ships still responding report complete system failures and gravitational entrapment." "How?" Corinth whispered. "How did they hide such advanced technology?" The answer came from Captain Park Min Seo of the human vessel Peaceful Resolution. "We did not hide our technology, General. We simply allowed you to see what you expected to see. You believed humans were weak farmers and philosophers, so you saw only farmers and philosophers. You never looked deeper." "This is impossible," Corinth said. "Our intelligence services are the best in the galaxy. We studied your species for decades." "Yes," agreed Captain Park. "And in all your studies, did you ever consider that a species capable of cooperation might also be capable of keeping secrets? Did you think that people who choose peace might still be excellent at war?" Across human space, the pattern repeated. Every alien fleet that had come to claim easy victories found themselves completely outmaneuvered by technology and tactics they had never imagined possible. On Nexus Prime, the Council members slowly realized that something had gone terribly wrong. "Report from the Kepler system," announced Counselor Thexvar, his telepathic voice tight with worry. "Our third mind fleet has gone silent. Last communication indicated they were approaching the target planet. The Krillian Armada has also stopped responding," added Admiral Zentho K's aide. "All ships reported normal approach vectors. Then, nothing. The hegemony forces—" General Corinth's voice trailed off as he read the data. "Impossible. This data must be wrong." Dr. Kelvith's mechanical voice remained steady, but his calculations were deeply troubling. "Analysis suggests that human defensive capabilities were severely underestimated. Probability of successful occupation has dropped to 0.001%. Chancellor Vexani's energy form flickered with confusion. How could we have been so wrong about their abilities? The answer came in a transmission that filled the council chamber with clear human voices. "Attention, Galactic Council. This is Admiral Lee Chang-ho of the Human Defense Force. Your invasion fleets have been contained. All personnel are safe and unharmed, but their vessels are no longer under their control." Ambassador Park's voice joined the transmission. "As I warned you 3 days ago, you have mistaken our patience for weakness. Humanity offered friendship. You chose conquest. Now you will learn that we are very good at things other than farming and philosophy. The council chamber fell into complete silence. For the first time in their long history, the galaxy's most powerful species realized they had made a mistake that might cost them everything. 3 months after the failed invasion of human space, the galaxy was burning. What started as the Council's attempt to partition human territory had become the largest galactic war in recorded history. Without human mediation, ancient hatreds between alien species erupted into open conflict. Trade networks collapsed, economies crashed, entire star systems became battlegrounds. Counselor Thexvar stood in the ruins of his command center on the Altarian homeworld. Half his fleet remained trapped in human space, and the other half was desperately fighting a war on 3 fronts. The telepathic screens around him showed disasters across Altarian territory. "Report," he projected to his aide. "The ethereal collective has invaded our northern systems," came the frightened mental response. "They claim we violated trade agreements when we attacked the humans. The synthoids have closed all banking services to our empire. Our economy is collapsing. The synthoids, and better." Thexvar felt a headache building behind his large black eyes. For decades, Altarian merchants had relied on human banking systems because humans were the only species that every other species trusted. Human banks were fair, honest, and neutral. Now those banks were closed to anyone who had participated in the invasion. "What about the agricultural systems?" he asked. "Failing, sir. We depended on human agricultural technology and expertise. Without their guidance, crop yields are down 60% across all farming worlds." The Altarian leader realized with growing horror that his people had been far more dependent on humans than anyone had imagined. Admiral Zenth OK faced similar problems in Krillian space. His insectoid warriors were among the fiercest fighters in the galaxy. But fighting required supplies, fuel, and equipment. All of those things had come through trade networks that humans had carefully built and maintained over decades. "Status report on the war with the hegemony," he clicked to his subordinates. "Bad, sir," replied General Vexthor. "Our ships are running out of fuel. The supply stations we used were all maintained by human engineering teams. Without them, our refinery systems keep breaking down." "Fix them ourselves," demanded Zenth. "We have tried, sir. Human technology is more advanced than we realized. Our engineers cannot understand how their systems work. Everything is connected in ways we did not expect." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in frustration. Krillian culture valued strength and conquest, but they had never been good at the complex logistics that kept civilizations running. They had relied on others for such boring work. Mainly humans. "What about medical supplies for our wounded?" General Vexthor's silence was answer enough. Human medical technology was the best in the galaxy. Human doctors and nurses had worked on every major world, providing healthcare that saved millions of lives every year. When the humans withdrew, they took their knowledge with them. Krillian soldiers were dying from injuries that human doctors could have easily treated. In the crystal towers of the ethereal homeworld, Chancellor Vexani faced her own crisis. The energy beings had always considered themselves the galaxy's natural leaders because of their advanced age and vast knowledge. But knowledge meant nothing if you could not apply it to real problems. "The rebellion in the outer colonies has spread to 12 more systems," reported her aide, his energy form flickering with worry. "Deploy more enforcement squadrons," Vexani ordered. "We cannot, Chancellor. Our enforcement squadrons were always supported by human logistics networks. We provided the orders, but humans provided the ships, supplies, and coordination." Vexani's form pulsed angrily. "How did we become so dependent on such a young species?" "Because, Chancellor, humans were very good at things we did not want to do ourselves. They handled negotiations between hostile groups. They provided neutral arbitration for trade disputes. They offered medical care to refugees. They built communication networks that everyone trusted." The truth was becoming clear across the galaxy. Humans had never been the most powerful military force or the most advanced technological civilization. Instead, they had become the species that everyone relied on to keep galactic society functioning. Dr. Kelvith discovered this reality in the most painful way possible. The Synthoid civilization was based on pure logic and efficiency, but their calculations had missed something crucial about how galactic economics actually worked. Analysis complete, he reported to the Synthoid Council. Economic projection models show complete system failure within 18 months if current trends continue. Explain, demanded Prime Calculator Nexus 7. The galactic economy was not based primarily on resource extraction or manufacturing. It was based on trust, cooperation, and neutral arbitration. All services provided mainly by humans. Without human banks, trading posts, and mediation services, commerce between hostile species has become impossible. Recalculate using alternative providers for these services. No viable alternatives exist. Other species lack the necessary trust relationships. The Altarians are telepaths, so others fear mental manipulation. The Krillians are aggressive, so others expect betrayal. The Ethereals are ancient and arrogant, so others refuse their authority. And humans? Dr. Kelvith's mechanical voice carried something that sounded almost like sadness. Humans were the only species that every other species trusted to be fair. They never used their position as mediators to gain unfair advantages. They treated all species with equal respect, regardless of military power or technological advancement. The data was undeniable. Humans had been the glue holding galactic civilization together. Across the galaxy, smaller species who had been protected by human advocacy found themselves facing persecution and conquest. The peaceful trading peoples of the Centauri cluster were overrun by aggressive neighbors. The artistic cultures of the Vega systems saw their works destroyed by species who valued only military strength. On hundreds of worlds, refugee camps overflowed with displaced populations who had nowhere to go. Human organizations had always been first to provide disaster relief, medical care, and refugee assistance. Without them, humanitarian crises spiraled out of control. Disease outbreaks spread unchecked through crowded refugee populations. Starvation became common on worlds that had lost their agricultural support systems. Pirates and raiders operated freely in space that had once been patrolled by human peacekeeping forces. The galaxy was learning what life looked like without the species they had dismissed as weak philosophers and farmers. General Corinth sat in his command bunker, watching reports of his empire's collapse. The hegemony had been built on conquest and exploitation, but maintaining an empire required skills his people had never developed. Humans had provided those skills in exchange for peaceful coexistence and fair trade agreements. "Sir," his aide reported, "we have received another communication from human space." "What do they want?" "Nothing, sir. They are offering free medical aid to refugee populations throughout our territory. No conditions, no demands for political concessions. They say they cannot watch innocent people suffer." Corinth stared at the message in amazement. Even after being attacked, even while watching their enemies destroy themselves, humans were still offering to help those in need. "They are sending medical ships to our refugee camps?" "Yes, sir. Hospital ships staffed with human doctors and nurses. They say they will treat anyone who needs help, regardless of species or political affiliation." For the first time, General Corinth began to understand what the humans had tried to tell them at the peace negotiations. Strength was not just about who could win fights. True strength was about who could build things, heal people, and bring different groups together. As reports continued to arrive from across his crumbling empire, Corinth realized that the humans had never been weak. Everyone else had been dependent. The message arrived simultaneously at every major government center across the galaxy. It was simple, direct, and impossible to ignore. The coalition of smaller species formally requests human mediation to end the current galactic crisis. "We acknowledge that the Council's actions were wrong and harmful. We ask for humanity's help in restoring peace. The transmission was signed by representatives from over 40 different civilizations. All the species that had been overlooked or dismissed by the major powers of the Galactic Council. Counselor Thexvar stared at the message displaying on his command center screens. Around him, what remained of the Altarian government was barely functioning. Half their worlds were in rebellion, their economy had collapsed, and refugees filled every remaining space station. "They want the humans to mediate," he said to his aide. "The same humans we called weak and primitive." "Sir," his aide replied carefully, "perhaps we were wrong about human capabilities." Thexvar's telepathic laugh was bitter. "Wrong? We have lost half our fleet, our economy has collapsed, and our people are starving. The humans defeated our invasion without killing a single Altarian soldier. And now they are sending medical aid to our refugee camps. We were not wrong about their capabilities. We were blind to them." 1-1-1-1-1-1-1. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Admiral Zenth OK had watched his mighty Krillian empire fragment into dozens of competing factions. General Corinth's hegemony existed only on paper. Most of their territory was now controlled by rebel groups or humanitarian organizations. Dr. Kelvith's latest calculations were the most disturbing of all. Probability of galactic civilization surviving another year without human involvement: 4.7%, he reported to the Synthoid Council. Conclusion: the human species was not merely participants in galactic society. They were the foundation upon which that society was built. Chancellor Vexani had reached the same conclusion through different means. Her ethereal collective had spent thousands of years studying the patterns of galactic politics. But they had missed the most important pattern of all. "Analysis of historical data confirms it," she announced to her advisors. "Every major peace agreement in the last century involved human mediation. Every successful trade negotiation between hostile species used human arbitrators. Every humanitarian crisis was resolved primarily through human aid organizations." "But they are such a young species," protested her aide. "How could they become so central to galactic civilization in only 2 centuries? "Because," Vexani realized, "they did not try to dominate, they tried to serve. While we competed for power, they built relationships. While we demanded respect, they earned trust." The final message came directly to Nexus Prime, addressed to the remnants of the Galactic Council. It was from Ambassador Jinsu Park. "To the members of the Galactic Council," the message began. "Humanity has received multiple requests for mediation assistance from various civilizations. We are prepared to help, but not under the previous arrangements." The council members gathered in their damaged chamber to hear the human terms. "First," Park continued, "any new galactic government must include representation for all species, not just the militarily powerful ones. The voices of smaller civilizations will be heard and respected." Thexvar bristled at this condition. But he had little choice. His own empire was being held together by human medical aid and engineering assistance. Second, the new government will be based on cooperation and mutual benefit, not conquest and exploitation. All member species will contribute according to their abilities and receive according to their needs. Admiral Zenthoke's mandibles clicked in frustration. This went against everything Krillian culture stood for. But with his own people suffering while human doctors worked around the clock to save Krillian lives, he could hardly argue against cooperation. Third, humanity will resume our role as neutral mediators and peacekeepers, but only with constitutional guarantees that our contributions will be valued and our perspectives will be respected. "And if we refuse these terms?" asked General Corinth, though his voice lacked its former arrogance. "Then humanity will continue to provide humanitarian aid to suffering populations, but we will not participate in galactic politics. You may govern yourselves as you see fit." The council members looked around at each other. Without human mediation, they had proven incapable of governing anything beyond their own immediate territories. Their great empires were collapsing, their economies were ruined, and their people were turning to human aid organizations for basic survival needs. Dr. Kelveth spoke first. The Synthoid Confederation accepts these terms. Logical analysis indicates that continued cooperation with humans provides the highest probability of survival and prosperity. Chancellor Vexani was next. The Ethereal Collective acknowledges human wisdom in these matters. We accept. One by one, the remaining council members agreed to the human terms. They had little choice. The alternative was watching their civilizations collapse completely. 2 weeks later, Ambassador Park returned to Nexus Prime. This time, he was accompanied by a much larger delegation that included representatives from dozens of smaller species. The circular table in the council chamber had been expanded to accommodate everyone. The new Galactic Cooperation Assembly is now in session, Park announced. Our first priority is coordinating humanitarian aid for the millions of refugees created by recent conflicts. Captain Yuki Tanaka stood to present the humanitarian aid report. Human medical ships are currently operating in 47 systems. We are treating over 2 million patients per day, regardless of their species or political affiliation. We need volunteer medical personnel from all member species to expand these operations. The response was immediate. Even former enemies volunteered their medical staff to work alongside human doctors. The shared experience of treating suffering people began to break down barriers that had existed for centuries. Our second priority, Park continued, is establishing new trade networks based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Dr. Sarah Kim will coordinate these efforts. Dr. Kim's plans were comprehensive and fair, instead of the old system where powerful species dominated weaker ones. The new networks would ensure that every civilization could contribute their specialties, while receiving what they needed to prosper. The Altarians would share their telepathic communication technologies. The Krillians would provide security services. The Ethereals would offer their vast historical knowledge. The Synthoids would contribute their analytical abilities. And humans would continue to do what they had always done: mediate disputes, provide neutral arbitration, coordinate relief efforts, and build the trust relationships that held everything together. This will not be easy, Park warned the Assembly. Building a truly cooperative galactic civilization requires each of us to change how we think about power and success. We must measure our strength not by how much we can take, but by how much we can give. Councillor Thexvar spoke for many when he said, Ambassador Park, 3 months ago my people considered humans weak because of your emphasis on cooperation and compassion. We now understand that these qualities are not weaknesses. They are the greatest strengths any species can possess. Admiral Zenthoke's agreement was harder for him to express, but no less sincere. The Krillian people have learned that true warriors protect others, not just themselves. We pledge our military strength to defend any member of this assembly. As the session continued, something unprecedented began to happen. Species that had been enemies for centuries started working together on common problems. The shared experience of rebuilding their damaged civilizations created bonds that had never existed before. Ambassador Park watched it all with quiet satisfaction. Humanity had not achieved this victory through superior weapons or advanced technology. They had won by being exactly what other species had mocked them for being: cooperative, compassionate, and committed to helping others succeed. The galaxy is at peace, Dr. Kim said quietly to Park as the session ended. No, Park replied with a smile. The galaxy is learning how to be at peace. That is much more valuable. Outside the great windows of Nexus Prime, ships from dozens of different species worked together to repair damaged stations and deliver aid to refugee populations. Human vessels flew alongside former enemies in perfect coordination, united by a common purpose that transcended old hatreds. The galaxy had finally learned what humans had tried to teach them from the beginning: That true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to build. And build they would, together, creating a civilization based on cooperation rather than conquest, on mutual aid rather than exploitation. It would be the greatest achievement in galactic history, and it had all started when humanity chose to withdraw from a peace negotiation rather than accept disrespect and contempt. Sometimes the greatest victory was knowing when to walk away, and then being ready when others finally realized they needed you to come back.